Up, we have Philip Mayer, who is with Tyann. Philip has worked with Tyann for 15 years. He's got a ton of experience presenting and talking everything Tyann. Maybe you could start, Philip, by giving us a little bit of more details about your role, and then I'll let you get right into how Tyann platforms are taking advantage of the superior power of the 4th gen AMD EPYC processors.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Philip, and I do product planning and product marketing here at Tyann. And I've got some slides here to show you guys. We have a bunch of products that are designed for the new 4th generation AMD Genoa EPYC server platforms. And I just got my stopwatch going, so I'll stay good on time here. Anyhow, I'm gonna start things off with just a brief corporate overview to introduce ourselves as a company. Tyann has been around since 1989, so we've been in business since the late 80s, essentially. In 2007, we were acquired by MiTAC, and we became the Tyann business unit of MiTAC. One of the key things here, though, was that we stayed in California. Our headquarters moved over to Taiwan, but we still have all the major business functions still in California. So our general manager lives and sits in our office in California. We have project management, application engineering, sales, marketing, warehousing, product planning. Basically, all the key functions still are residing in California. It let us work with you basically on project management. If you have a project that's going on, let us stay up all night dealing with Taiwan. You don't have to deal with our local project management, and we'll take care of it for you, basically. I'm going to show off some projects or some products that we've kicked off for the Genoa platform. And one of the things you'll notice as I go through my deck here is that I don't have any processors listed. I don't have any storage capacities or DIMMs. We're selling these as motherboards and bare bones systems. So unlike some of our peers in the industry, we haven't moved away from the building block segment. We're still happy to sell motherboards and bare bones. So one of our key markets basically are systems integrators and value-added resellers who are looking to capture the margin of building your own systems. So we're happy to provide you with these parts. The first thing I'm going to show to you is a motherboard we call the S8050. And this is a standard form factor motherboard. Now, the eagle-eyed among us will notice that there's 8 DIMM slots on this thing. SP5, yes, does have 12 memory channels. I wanted to keep this in a standard form factor. So it's SSI CEB, and it's a continuation of a previous generation platform that we call the S8030, which had 5x16 slots. It was a good runner for us, and we talked to those customers who are buying it, and they were interested in keeping the PCI Express slots, and they weren't as interested in max memory support. I have other products that'll give you 12 or 24 DIMMs. So this gives you 5x16s. It also has 24 PCI Express lanes available through MCIO connectors, basically 6 NVMe ports direct to the motherboard. As far as power delivery, this thing can support 400 watts, so it can do the entire SKU stack for Genoa and the upcoming processors. I have a system or a motherboard called the S8056. Now, this one is not a standard form factor. As much as I would have liked to stay on 12x13, things are getting enormous. I don't know if you've seen the processors, but they're getting to be about the size of your hand at this point. So just a 1 CPU and DIMMs basically takes the entire board at this point. So I did have to stretch the dimensions to 12x14. CAD models are available. So if you're interested in punching the holes in your chassis to support this thing, we'll get you CAD models, 3D, 2D, whatever you need. It does also support 400 watt processors, so you get the full SKU stack. We have 24 DIMM slots. Now, that does let you go up to 6 terabytes of RAM with unobtainium 256 gigabyte DIMM. Something more commonplace with 128s will net you 3 terabytes, and if you're sticking with like commodity 64 gigabyte DIMMs, you can reach 1.5 terabytes easily with this many DIMM slots. As far as I/O goes on this platform, on the leading edge of the board, I've got 8 MCIO by 8 connectors, 64 PCI Express lanes, 16 NVMe ports directly from the motherboard. And we're using ultra low loss materials, so we're supporting PCI Gen 5. We have all the signal integrity there for the high speed stuff. We have a OCP3 NIC mezzanine, a by 16 slot, and a by 24 slot for butterfly configurations. The nice thing about the OCP3 NIC mezzanine is compared to the older OCP2, OCP2 was thermally limited. It was a sandwich between 2 PCBs. You had a tiny heatsink. Those were only good up to about 25 gigabit Ethernet. With OCP3, we can support speeds up to 400 as those parts become available. Now, I understand that this is a custom form factor, so you may not be interested in stamping your own sheet metal for it. So I have it available in some bare bones options. So I'm going to show you this one first. This is something called the GC68A B8056. It's a 1U platform with 12 U.2 NVMe bays. And just as a side note, I am expecting, and I have seen the roadmaps on the storage vendors, I am expecting U.2 to be mainstream for PCI Express Gen 5. So the nice thing about U.2 right now is we get support for the current Gen 4 SSDs, but we also have forward support towards Gen 5 as those become available going forward. This is the same 8056 motherboard I just showed you, so it's got all the nice features there. It's got all the Genoa goodness. It's got 24 DIMM slots, 12 memory channels, OCP3 NIC slot. But in this form factor, we've got 2x16 slots, full height, half length, and an OCP NIC. So it does give you a good balance between storage throughput as well as networking. It's really easy with NVMe to have so much NVMe, so much storage throughput capacity that you can't supply it with enough networking to get the data in or out of the box. So having 3 expansion slots and 12 NVMe is a nice balance if that's what you're looking for. One other thing, we have toolless drive trays and a toolless rail kit. The drive trays are clamshell design and snap shut, and the rail kit is toolless to the chassis as well as to the rack. I have tried with previous generation stuff. We used to have non-toolless rail kits, and at trade shows, I had a chassis once years ago that took 3 people to rack. So I'm a huge fan of toolless rail kits. Again, toolless to the chassis as well as the rack. I've got the same board in a 2U system. So this is something called TS70 B8056. We've got 12 3.5-inch bays, and with tie-in platforms, the drive tabs, the color indicates what is supported. So dark blue drive tabs indicate SATA supports. Blue tabs, or the light blue tabs, I should say, support NVMe. So 12 bays, all SATA. 4 of them also support NVMe. At the back of the system, I also have 2.5s, and those are U.2 as well. So you can do it's a good application, good fit for hybrid storage servers. You can get a mixture of high capacity bulk storage as well as NVMe cache. This is something we call a TS70A B8056. I just want to step back one. My 1U platform, the CPU TDP goes up to 300 watts. And I'm expecting more adoption of 2Us going forward because the 2Us just have a much bigger heatsink. So both this and the next platform I'm showing you, both my 2Us have heatsinks that support 400 watt processors, which is the full stack. My TS70A has 26 2.5-inch bays up front. So you get 2 NVMe boot drives as well as 24 data drives, or however you want to mix it up, but that's a fairly common configuration. Since NVMe is PCI Express attached storage, in order to use 100 PCI Express lanes for this many bays up front, I am using most of my slots in the back. However, I still have enough for networking. So you get 26 NVMe bays. You still have the x16 OCP NIC as well as a x8 slot to get data in and out of the box. I have another platform here. This is more of a roadmap item for this. This is something I'm expecting to be available summer of this year. It's something called a TD76 B8058. It will be available as a 2U4 node, but we're also looking at doing a 2U2 node version of it. Now, the cool thing about the 2U2 node is it gives you 1U logical density because you have 2 nodes in a 2U space. But unlike an actual 1U server, which has limited space for heatsink, going with a 2U2 node lets you use just an enormous EVAC heatsink, EVAC, extended volume air cooling. You just put a huge air cooler on this, and it lets you cool a 400 watt processor within a logical 1U space. It's still taking up to 2U, but again, you got 2 nodes there. Again, it's a 12-channel memory controller on this. We do have 16 memory slots. Most people shouldn't be using unbalanced memory configuration, but if you have an application, typically things like EDA workloads that just need more memory, we can go unbalanced. Some of those channels can have a second DIMM per channel, and that brings you up to 16 DIMM slots. And that allows the maximum capacity of this to go up to 4 terabytes using 256 gigabyte DIMMs. As far as expansion goes, it's got a full height, half length x16 slot, PCI Express Gen 5, as well as an OCP3 NIC mezzanine. And for this, I wasn't willing to use E1S in the past because they're essentially single source from one vendor. But going forward, I've seen E1S appear on basically all the storage vendors' roadmaps. So I'm expecting good supply for E1S. And I like it here because it's a cramped node without a lot of space. And by going to E1S, I can still fit 4 NVMe bays and still have space for I/O at the front of the chassis. And one last thing I want to touch up on, so I'm running up on time here. I have all of our platforms support IPMI as well as Redfish, Redfish 1.8, I believe, which is great for management. You go into web interface and you do whatever you have to do. It's fine if you're using one server. We got 2, 3, 4 servers. It ain't that big of a deal. You have 100 servers, suddenly that doesn't scale very well. So you have 1,000 servers, that really doesn't scale. So we have a product that we call tie-in TSM, which is a server group control software suite. This allows you to have one pane of glass, and it auto detects all of your Tyan servers on your network and allows you to monitor whatever it is you want to monitor. So sensors, sensor data records, event logs, and also importantly, firmware management. So you can batch, push BMC firmware or BIOS updates to your entire fleet and just do it from one place. So it scales much better than just a single node login type thing does. Anyhow, that's what I want to share with you guys. I just want to note that we have a landing page for Genoa. If you go to tyan.com/AMD, it takes you to a nice landing page with all of our Genoa platforms. And if you have any questions offline, my name is Philip. Just drop me an email, philip.maher@tyan.com, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And that's what I got. Back to you, Ryan.